Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2020-21 season. My name is Dan and today I've got a lovely video for you for Game Week 26, the big double game week of course. Now, a few of you have asked me to do a free hit draft, a few of you guys have asked me to do a wildcard draft, and others of you have just kind of asked me, is this player any good? Is this player any good? Well, I thought I'd try and wrap all of that into one video and try and make a list of my favourite players for Game Week 26. Now, it's not quite a draft, it's not doing all of the work for you, but hopefully I can really help you identify the best players to pick if you are on a free hit, the best players to pick if you are on a wild card, and also if you're just making plain old transfers. Hopefully some of these players I identify in this video might be kind of what you're looking for. So that's what I'm kind of hoping from today's video. Hopefully it's just going to be useful for you guys. So if you do enjoy this video, of course, please do like the video. Really helps the channel out a lot. And subscribe, of course, if you're new around here. Why not? FPL nonsense in your face every single day. Gotta do it, guys. Gotta do it, guys. So a few of you might be familiar with this format already, but here it is once again. So kind of divided players into four categories, and this is just players for Game Week 26. I've divided them up into, well, are they high risk? Are they low risk? You know, the low risk players, the green ones, if you like, are going to be the players we kind of really want. These players, these are players we really want for this double game week. For the medium risk, the kind of ones, okay, maybe I want to fancy taking a slight risk on these ones. Let's pick up a couple of these guys too. Maybe they'll be a bit differential. The high risk players are kind of like, if you really want to take a risk, you can go for them. And I've also just sprinkled in a couple of potential bench options amongst this video today as well. So there are 64 players. That's the most amount of players I've ever spoken about in an individual video. Guys, in particular, if you are on a wild card, pay close attention to the players from Aston Villa, from Spurs and from Fulham. Those are the three teams that you want to be targeting if you're on a wild card. If you're not on a wild card, if you're on a free hit, for example, if you're playing a short-term game, then just pick whoever you want out of this list. But hopefully we will cover every single player who is even worth mentioning in this video. And if they're not in this video, they're probably not worth mentioning at all, are they? So very quickly, you might be familiar with this table. I'm using it a lot, but I just think this table is so useful. I'm so glad I made it. So we'll have a look at it again. Basically, I'm not going to be going through all of the teams who have double game weeks, but we are going to be ignoring players with single game weeks in Game Week 26 because we do not want to target the players who are playing single game weeks this week. We want to focus on the double game week players only. So let's wipe those teams off the board. Let's carry on wiping a few more teams off the board if they have, you know, poor fixtures. Maybe they're a poor team. We can wipe them off as well, which kind of narrows us down to 9 teams that we're really interested in. So these are the 9 teams we kind of want to be targeting, I guess. So we're going to run through all of those teams. Once again, guys, if you're on a wild card, focus on Spurs, Aston Villa and Fulham in this video. Right, let's crack on. So let's start you off with Aston Villa. There are some really nice options here. Martinez, Watkins, Target and Konsa. These are the players we really do want to be having a look at. Probably take one defender if I'm honest. You probably wouldn't want Martinez, Target and Konsa. Martinez is probably a player you really want, but if you haven't got Martinez already, maybe go for a defender, you know, a Target or a Konsa. There is argument to say double up on the defence, but I'm not 100% sure on it. El Mohammadi is a slight risk. He is very cheap, but there are, you know, I've seen that Matty Cash is back in training now. So El Mohammadi is going to be a very short-term move, assuming that he plays in this double game week. I think he probably will, but there is potential for Cash to come back slightly earlier than expected, but you take that slight risk there, but that's why you pay such a cheap price. And then we've got kind of Mings and Barkley. I'm not really so keen on these, if I'm honest, but they are kind of risky players. They can potentially pay off, but you would be taking a big risk there. Traore, I think, is a really interesting one. If you are looking for an Aston Villa differential, I would say Traore at 5.9 million is probably the one to go for. Everton is a team we really like the look of for Game Week 26, just because their fixtures, Southampton and West Brom, are just so good. These are really nice fixtures. So maybe it's a little bit more short-term than thinking about Aston Villa, Fulham and, you know, Spurs. But Everton do have the potential to have a double game week against Aston Villa in Game Week 28 as well. So definitely worth considering. We don't know for sure yet. It's kind of unlikely, but, you know, that chance of it happening is quite nice. So DCL is going to be the big one for this game week. Him and Digne. Digne is another player I really like for this game week as well. Pickford, if you already have him, or if you really need a goalkeeper for this game week, then he could be the one for you. 4.8 million is kind of the cheapest way to guarantee yourself into that Everton defence. So that is a really nice way of getting in there. Then we kind of got the medium risk. Richarlison, Keane, Holgate, slightly rotation risk there, so maybe I'm not so keen on him, but he is very cheap. And then we've got Rodriguez, Sigurdsson, Coleman, if you fancy taking a bit of a risk. Coleman, again, his minutes are a little bit of a concern, so that's the only thing that kind of puts me off Coleman a little bit, but fancy a risk. Rodriguez, he seems to be playing most games. Sigurdsson, slightly less games, but he does have these set pieces and penalties, of course, to his name, which is quite nice. Fulham, a big team to target, a really nice team to target. We are looking at their defence really more than their attack. They kind of do struggle to score goals a little bit, Fulham, but they have been doing pretty well defensively, to be fair. Quite well. They're quite high up the tables on recent performances for defensive performances. And they've got Crystal Palace, which is a really nice fixture if you're a defender. Crystal Palace don't tend to score many goals, unless last weekend, obviously, they had a few wonder goals, but that's not going to happen every game week. And then Spurs, also, probably the least amount of goals of any team in recent game weeks. So, like, you know, past 5-6 game weeks, Spurs have hardly scored any goals. You can put that down a little bit maybe to Kane's absence, but he hasn't been missing every game. And, you know, I just think that there is some real potential for some defenders from Fulham here. So, Aina, Areola are the big targets. Aina is just the best defenders to go for. I really wouldn't be looking too far out of that. If you want to take a bit of a risk, you go for Robertson maybe. Maja, Lookman if you want an attacking player. But like I said, they are kind of like, you know, Fulham don't score that many goals, so that is kind of a problem there, but they are very cheap, these Fulham attackers, so it kind of mitigates the risk a little bit. So if you are looking to get a budget player in to facilitate a more expensive player in another position maybe, then maybe you could have a look at some of these Fulham attackers as well. And then Reed, if you fancy a bench option, 4.4 million, plays every game, you know, it's not too bad, is it? Leicester are another team that a lot of people are looking at for this game week only. Kind of see where people are coming from. It does look pretty nice. Kind of the form that Leicester have been showing, it's kind of impressive. The fixtures aren't amazing, but Leicester do have a good record against Arsenal. And Burnley, although they have been doing quite well defensively recently, they have had some quite easy opposition. So they do have the Pope factor. I don't think Leicester players are going to be as important as your Everton players, who I do really like the look of, but there is definitely some argument to go for some Leicester players, particularly Barnes, Vardy, Pereira. Pereira, you know, although he's listed as a defender, he's actually sometimes playing as a right winger. So that's really, really nice. A 5.9 million defender who's actually playing on the wing for a decent team in Leicester. That is something we definitely want to look at. You know, Burnley and Arsenal are not scoring a huge amount of goals. Maybe Arsenal have turned it around slightly recently, but this is some opportunities for some defenders here. So Pereira, really like the look of as a short-term punt. If you were fancy another defender, you've got Schmeichel, you've got Soyuncu, Castagna. I don't know. I feel like if you're going for Castagna, just go for Pereira. It's sort of 0.2 million more expensive with Pereira, so just go for him. But the option is there. And then Tielemans is kind of a real risk there. If you really want to do that risk, I would just stick with Barnes personally if I were you guys. Liverpool in general are kind of a risky team just broadly, just because their players are so expensive. So although you can say, okay, all of these players on this list, they're typically good players, aren't they? But they are so expensive and there is a lot more value elsewhere. So that's why I've kind of listed most of these players as probably a little bit more risky than you think they are. But that's purely because they don't offer very good value for money. So Salah is your safe bet. We kind of know by now Salah is a pretty safe bet. He's still topping the tables for, you know, most amount of shots, you know, shots in the box, shots on target. He's taking a lot of shots. His expected goals over the past 5 games is really high. We know he's on penalties as well. Liverpool getting a few penalties and Salah is taking them and scoring them. So Salah is still a good option. He still is a good option. Alexander-Arnold is probably the best of the defenders, I would say. Firmino is creating chances, getting in good opportunities to score, but his finishing is always a little bit subpar, so it's a kind of a medium risk there. And then Robertson, I don't know, I'm not really feeling Robertson, but he is a risk you could go for. And Mane, again, huge risk that you could go for. Not 100% sure on this. If he'd played more games and played well in more games recently, I might be more inclined, but he has had some big hauls in the not so distant past. So there is that option if you really are feeling quite spicy. Man City are a team that, once again, I'll tell you this every time, we need to be tripling up on Man City. If you've not tripled up on Man City already, you need to do it. They've got a double game week 26, they've got a double game week 27. That's exactly what you want. 2 double game weeks in a row, you can't go wrong. So what I would typically say is pick 2 defensive players and 2 attack-minded players there. So Cancelo, Diaz, Ederson are the safe bets. I know a lot of you guys will be tempted to go for Stones, but Stones does carry that rotation risk that I feel like Cancelo and Diaz don't carry as much rotation risk at all, really. I think they're probably going to play 90% of games. Edison, you just covered all the time. You're not going to get any bonus points. You're probably not going to get any save points, but you do at least have that guaranteed 6 points every game because, look, Man City are keeping clean sheets every single game, and against Wolves and West Ham, you'd say there's more clean sheets there as well. In terms of attacking players, there are a few options. Gundogan, Sterling, KDB seem like to be the most sensible picks of the lot. There's obviously always a slight rotation risk with any attacking City player. But then we kind of got Bernardo Silva, Foden there as well as the high-risk players. You know, I could go on and on and on about the super high-risk players. We could talk about Mahrez, Jesus, Aguero. They're all really high risk. I don't want to talk about them all too much because we know they're really high risk players, don't we? Manchester United have some good options here. Bruno Fernandes, we know about. Let's not talk about him. Got to have him in your team, haven't you, at this point? Sure, Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Sure is much cheaper, but he does carry that tiny rotation risk. But it's not enough of a risk for me to put him in like a medium or high risk category, just because when he does play, his output is really, really good indeed. But if you do want, you know, that 100% certainty that your player is going to play, then perhaps Wan-Bissaka is going to be the player for you. We could kind of look at Rashford, Maguire, Lindelof if we're trying to get a cheap way into the Manchester United defence. Lindelof is the way to go. But, you know, I don't feel like Manchester United's defence are offering enough to want to go in on them on a cheap level. If I'm going for a Manchester United defender, I probably want the potential for attacking returns there as well. And sure, Wan-Bissaka, I guess Maguire to a degree do offer that as well, which is kind of why De Gea is in the high risk category, because Manchester United and clean sheets are kind of not quite going together right now. Martial, real risk there as well. But, you know, Crystal Palace, that's a quite an easy way into a clean sheet. Chelsea are not scoring a lot of goals at the moment either. So there is potential for clean sheets here, but I just don't fully trust Manchester United for those clean sheets right now. Spurs, like I said, a team you want to go for, but you probably expected a few more low-risk players in here, and there's not really that many low-risk players. I'd say Kane, Reguilon look pretty good to go. Reguilon is a crucial part of this Spurs team when he's fit, so I do expect him to be playing most games, if not all games. He's going to be coming in instead of Davies. Even if they go to a 5 at the back, Davies goes left centre-back, Reguilon plays a more advanced left wing-back / left midfield position, which could be really nice. He does create a lot of chances from that position, so it's quite nice. Son, kind of gone off the boil. I don't think he's had any shots in his last game. He's not taken any near his shots or getting into good attacking positions as he has before. Maybe he, you know, spontaneously comes back and does something magnificent. Obviously, that's always the possibility with a player of this quality, but in recent game weeks, there's not really been that much evidence. We've got Bale written down here as well, who actually, you know, it looks like he's kind of in quite good form. He's going to come back into this Spurs team, but he's still a bit of a risky player. Maybe that sort of takes a little bit more emphasis off Son as well. Dyer, I've got there as a tiny, he's a little bit of a rotation risk, but again, do you trust the Spurs defence? These are good fixtures for defenders, but Spurs are conceding a lot of goals and not scoring that many either. So they're kind of a bit of a dodgy team to go for right now, but you kind of still should probably go for them. And it depends, do you trust their history? Do you trust their future? I don't know. Burnley and Fulham are not great fixtures for attackers. They're not terrible fixtures, but they're not amazing. So try not to overestimate how good these fixtures are, and try not to overestimate how good Spurs are right now, because they're kind of one of the most out of form teams in the league right now. But, you know, when you've got players like Kane and Son, you know that these are good players and they could come back into form at any moment. So you would be taking the punt on that fact, essentially. I've got Højbjerg down here as well as a really kind of, I guess, a slightly premium bench option, if you like. Just because he's absolutely mopping up those bonus points at the moment. He's playing really well. He's really important to this Spurs team. He's getting loads of bonus points. So in these dodgy 1-1s, he could often come up with those bonus points. But at 4.9 million, you know, just manage your expectations type thing. And we're going to finish you off with West Brom against Brighton and Everton. Now, there's no low-risk players here. Anyone you pick from West Brom is risky. Pereira, Diagne, is it Diagne? I think that's how you say it. Diagne. He is looking actually quite good, Diagne. He's sort of actually producing one of the higher attacking underlying stats of any player in the league. I think he's got something like the second highest XG over the last couple of games out of all players in the whole league in those forward positions. So that could be a really interesting one to go for. We know Pereira is a really good player as well. The thing is, with the defensive players, your Johnston, your Ainsley Maitland-Niles, who is a defender but actually playing in midfield, I guess, and Bartley, they are cheap. They are really nice and cheap, but this is West Brom's defence, and we don't typically trust West Brom's defence at all. So we would be taking a real risk here. Now, Brighton is a good fixture for a defender, but is it good enough that, you know, a team like West Brom, who do concede a lot of goals, a hell of a lot of goals, do we trust them? I don't know. You'd be taking a risk if you went for them, but, you know, there's nothing wrong with taking a few risks. I've got loads of players in this video today that are kind of in the high risk category. There's nothing wrong with taking 1 or 2 of those, because if they go right, that's really going to be a nice positive swing for your rank. You're really going to boost yourself up the tables. You know, you're going to surprise a lot of your friends in your mini league, and that's going to be really nice. But that is basically all 64 players. Wow. I can't believe we've spoken about so many players in one video. I'm actually quite proud of myself. We got through them quite quickly. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys. Like I say, if the player is not in this video, it probably means that I'm not so keen on them whatsoever. I wouldn't even be considering them. But you've got 64 players here, so plenty to choose from, guys. And yeah, hopefully some players on this list you might like the look of. Try and pick as many low-risk players as you can, because they are kind of the diamonds, the real good players that we really want this game week. And maybe sprinkle in some medium and high-risk players as well if you're feeling kind of spicy as well. But hopefully this was useful. If you did find this useful, please do give a big thumbs up on the video. It really helps me out. And subscribe if you're new around here, of course. And aside from that, guys, I will see you tomorrow for a deadline stream, 10 AM GMT. It's 10 AM, I believe it is. But yeah, I'll put that up so you can set a reminder if you want to do that or whatever. So yeah, hopefully, guys, I'll see you on the deadline stream. But aside from that, thank you for watching, and I will see you later, mates. Bye bye.